Greets peeps, this is Tony, the hero of Flanders, hero of France, here to help you learn Europa Universalis 4. This is a game I've only picked up relatively recently. It's been out for, I think, four or 5 years, and Paradox Studio are amazing at constantly updating their software, putting out new DLC that changes the game wildly. I've only installed the core. I've only got the 4 core DLCs running, so we'll talk about those in short order. But in the meantime, I want to tell you about this game. Paradox Studios do all sorts of amazing games, starting with Crusader Kings. That begins, I think you can begin that sort of in the 800s, and then you can follow their games right through until the current era, 1950 I think it is, with the Hearts of Iron 4. They've also got this being Europa Universalis 4. There's a series of these back into the past. I think the first time I saw one of these was Europa Universalis 2, and it was insane. There was so much going on, I had no idea where to begin, and for that reason I never went back to it. I've played strategy games, I've played tactical games for forever, and Europa Universalis 2 looked too scary, was too confusing for a Civilization player, so I wanted to try to talk you through the way that I learned this game, and give you all of the core information that you need to get into this just amazing game. So what we'll do is we'll have a quick look at the options. Nothing particularly important in here. The autosave interval, that's fine. I don't want to autosave to cloud. Video, yeah, whatever. I've turned down a bunch of stuff to make it run a little bit quicker, hopefully, while I'm recording, and got music in the background as well, all off the same box. So nothing too exciting there. The tutorial built into the game is good. It's probably the best tutorial that of any of the Paradox games. Their tutorials in other games are pretty raw, and you don't know anywhere near enough. I think the same applies to this game. There's so much going on that, and the tutorial gives you just enough to kind of learn, and then you need to watch another 50 hours of someone who knows how to play the game playing it, and you need to ask questions, and it's just really hard work. So Arumba's done some good stuff out there. There's a bunch of other guys who do good tutorials. I wanted to give you my interpretation, because I don't think anyone's, I don't know. I wanted to do it again. I wanted to do it myself and see if I could help the community and help spread the word about this amazing game. So let's go into the single player. This is the third of these that I've attempted to record, just due to a hummy headset and some interruptions with work phone calls and stuff. So let's begin. The nation that we're going to choose is we're going to use Burgundy, because they've got a whole lot of different mechanics that are really interesting. Burgundy have an ally, they have a vassal, and they also have some client states, some marriage union partners. So we've got Flanders, we've got Holland, and Brabant. Yeah. So we've got three marriage union partners, an ally, and a standard vassal. We'll go into how all of these mechanics work further, but there's another interesting thing about Burgundy, and that we're right next to the Holy Roman Empire. So there's a lot of mechanics that this one country should be able to show us through in relatively short order, rather than having to manually create all of these things ourselves. So we'll select Burgundy. What we also want to do is we want to have a look through, I wanted to talk through the various starting times. I always start at the earliest I can, because I want my game to last the longest it possibly can. If the amount of time this game takes, it's a very long game. Expect to you can't easily play this starting at the beginning without planning to spend 100 hours perhaps at minimum on a campaign, and that's running it very fast and doing things very quick. What you can do, if that seems quite hard, I mean, the interesting thing about this game is you get out of it as much as you want to put into it. If you want to start right at the end, then you can play really slowly while it loads really slowly. You can play on a much slower speed and do a whole lot more things, and you'll only be playing for, in the normal game proper, the game ends at 1821, so you've got what 28 years of gameplay, and that should reduce the amount of time that a game would take. When you select one of these different start times, you see the various nations of interest, along with a brief on what's going on in the world. If we select, we can see at this time Burgundy's completely gone. So my choice of Burgundy in this era is not available. Burgundy does not exist at this time. What we can see though is that there's various people at war. There's various alliances. Oh, the states are allied with the France is allied with the States. England is allied with all sorts of folks. They've got truces, they've got all sorts of interesting things going on. So whatever you choose will be interesting. Any of these eras will be interesting. But I always like playing the game as sandbox as I possibly can. So I start at the beginning when there's lots and lots of tiny little nations going on. There's all sorts of politicking and warring and trading and allying to do, and Burgundy will be a great place to start with that. So what we need to do first is, I won't go into the DLCs. I want to do a separate video on downloadable content, but these are the 4 core ones. If you have these 4, you've got most of what you need from the game. There's, I think, buying this game and just these 4 will cost about 25 American, while Paradox are doing a sale. They do sales every probably 4 sales a month, 4 sales a year, and if you grab it during then, maybe $30 US, £20, and you'll have access to all of the core stuff. And honestly, once you buy this game, you'll end up picking up more stuff just to give you more options. So these options that I have here, Art of War, Common Sense, Cossacks, and Mare Nostrum will be fine for playing in Europe. All of the core mechanics are there, and all of the stuff that I want to show you through is as well. I'll likely go through, start different campaigns with the other DLC. I think there's something, there's hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of, I think you can pay about $200 US to get all of the content, but a vast amount of it is just graphical tweaks, or even music add-ons, and I don't use the music for this game. I use my own because there's some weird musical choices in there. So yeah, it's up to you what you get, but I reckon if you get these 4, you'll have a great old time. Hey, don't get me wrong, getting the base game itself, which will cost you like, I would expect about 20 US, will give you hundreds of hours of game time. There's heaps to do, and DLC just adds more. So I've already decided that Burgundy will be our nation that we're going to choose. Let's run through and have a look at the various map modes. These are only a few of the map modes. We'll do much more map mode work in the main game proper once we start, but in the meantime we can see terrain, shows us mountains, water, hills and deserts and plains and what have you. It's very rarely used. It looks nice, but I very rarely use it. Political one is the one that I will use almost all the time. This one shows the boundaries of your kingdom, of the various other nations that are involved. Not much more beyond that. From this view, within the game, it shows a little bit more. The trade view shows us that we're part of, that we're primarily in the Champagne trade node, I believe. This being our, that being our core mode. Our core node. Yeah, it puts us in the Champagne trade node. But we also have presence because we've got parts of our country in other trade nodes. We're also involved in others, and we have some effect on those as well. But we'll get into trade. Trade's a very tricky thing in this game. We'll get into that later. In fact, trade I'm still learning stuff on, so we'll learn together. Religion in the game is hugely important. We're Catholic, as is all of Europe, and most of Europe. I can't remember whether this counts as Europe. There are lots of Orthodox down there. If you scroll over there, their state religion is Catholic, but the actual people within the place are Orthodox, by the looks. Yeah, so the religion in the province is Orthodox, so they'll likely, being that the state religion is Catholic, they'll likely start converting this over to Catholicism. Sunni, Shia, Hindu, Vajrayana, Tengri, Confucian, Animist. What are those guys? Oh, what's that one called? Theravada. Some more Hindus, Sunni, and all Animist for the rest of the world. Actually, that's not true. Aren't these guys something different? Yes, they're the Inti religion. They're the Mayan, and they're the Nahuatl. Oh, and Totemist up there, of course, for those guys. So lots of different religions, lots of different mechanics from those religions. But for me, the most interesting ones are Catholic and the various offshoots of Catholicism that come later on in the game. So we're going to play in the Catholic world. Imperial is another map mode. Within this, we can see the ones with the stripes are the territories are part of the Empire. So this province is part of the Empire, but it belongs to Burgundy, who aren't part of the Empire. So I'm going to try to join the Empire. There's various things I can do once I get into that, and we'll get into the mechanics of that later. Green means that they're part of the Empire. Purple means they're the Emperor, so Austria has a little outpost over here, along with their lands here. The brown ones are electors, so when the ruling emperor dies, the electors will vote for whoever their favourite is, and they'll vote a new elector. Very likely it'll be Austria again for a long time. That's usually the way that it goes. There's also the blue free cities, are single state nations who have special protections from the emperor and have some trade advantages as well, I think, but we'll have a look at that later. The diplomatic map is useful, very useful. It shows us our own territories, it shows us our vassal territories in the teal colour, and it shows our personal union territories as well in that same green colour. The only other things of interest with the diplomatic map are the blue ones, which show us our allies. I think later, I think once we're in the game, we can see military access on this map as well, but I might be mistaken. We'll have a look. The development map shows us how developed various areas are. If we scroll over the bright green ones, they'll have high development, so 30, 32. Our capital is 24, so we're sort of a yellowy greeny colour. Down to the red ones, they're 5. If we have a look down here, we can see 3, 3, 3, 3. So 3 is about the lowest. I don't think it can get any lower than that, though I could be wrong. And our final map mode is the regions map mode. We can see that we're part of the France sphere, if you like. France group of culture. Britain, Iberia, Italy, South Germany, North Germany, and Low Countries. That's it. Low Countries. So these are the areas that will be our focus in the very short, in the very immediate future. In fact, given that we've got some people of different cultures already, given that these guys are in the Low Countries, they'll have different cultures. We'll examine that in the next video once we're actually in the game. Before then, we'll have a look at the area on the right here that helps you choose whether you want to play a nation or not. We'll go back to our standard view by pressing W. We can see that we're a duchy rank. There's 3 ranks. There's duchy, kingdom, and empire. There's other words for duchies. These guys are earldoms, but earldoms are the same as duchies. There's kingdoms have multiple duchies, and usually have multiple duchies. Ireland have different terminologies because they're a special case. There's empires. There's duchies like us. There's kingdoms like England, and there's over here empires like Ming. The requirement to become an empire is 1,000 development. They've got 1,113. I believe they're the only empire in the game at present. Those are 456. Those are 313. They're 210. They're 257. Yeah. So they're the China's the only empire at the moment. The Ming, rather, is the only empire at the moment. While we are a humble duchy. Other things of note in here are the technology groups. Up to a certain level of DLCs, the technology groups have a massive impact. Western technology groups have no disadvantages to their techs. What are they? Muslim technology has slightly less. Hang on, which way does it go? I think it goes Western, Western Anatolian, Chinese, and Eastern, I believe, and then African, and then actually West and East Africa are different. I think East is more advantaged than East. Oh, sorry, they're Muslim. Which is that? They're East African, they're West African, and then over in the Americas there's lower grades of technology group, but that won't come into things too much until we start expanding. We can have a look at those later on. We're in the Catholic group, as we saw before. We're a duchy, as we saw before. Now, one of the most important things about choosing a new nation, about whom you know nothing, is their leaders' abilities. We've got an amazing leader, probably one of the best in the game at the moment. Wow, definitely better than England, better than France, better than Austria. Hungary have got an interregnum, meaning in between kings, which I'm sure you'd know. Yeah, okay. So we may have the best ruler in the game to start with. Burgundy may have been a very smart choice for more reason than one. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at those skills there. And yeah, no one comes close to us. Oh, there we go. Florence. He beats us. They're Medici. Cosimo de Medici. Of course. So beyond the Medicis, our ruler Philippe III de Bourgogne, is the best leader that I can find easily here. What these mean is that 5 skill points a month in each sphere of technology, administrative, diplomatic, and military, will be added to our total. These are called monarch points. So we get 5 per turn, purely from our leader. If we compare that to France, they get 4, 2, and 4. We compare that to England, and they get nada. Their ruler is extremely poor, and I think that's something to do with gameplay. I think there's a rebellion going on in England. I can't remember. I don't know if I've even played England in this game, to be honest. There's so many nations to play that you'll always find something new. Each of these points that we gather per each month will go into a pool, and once we hit a certain amount of them, I believe when we kick off it'll be 600 or 600 odd, we'll be able to get a new technology. There's other uses for these points, but we'll come into those. We'll go into those later on. This next row shows us our starting technologies. We've got level 3 in each of these, as will most of the other nations in Europe. 3 through 3. If we start going away from Europe, we'll likely see those tail off a little bit. Oh, we might have to go quite far. Maybe not. Okay, looks like most everywhere right across Europe and Asia have 333, but once we get down to the African nations, there's 222, 333 on that side, 223. So basically, the further you 111 at Cusco. So the further you go from Europe, the trickier your start will be. As a rough guide to. Not necessarily true, but to an extent, it's you'll be behind the nations in Europe, and for that reason, you'll see the European nations expanding over here rather than the American nations expanding over to Europe. Ideas are one of the most important parts of the game. When you get to certain tiers of administration technology, you can choose ideas. These will, by default, each nation has their own ideas that they start with. The bigger nations have their own unique ideas. So we see French traditions. They start with a bonus to their manpower of 20% and diplomatic relations bonus of 1, as opposed to us, who we start with extra morale for our armies, and we start with the same, and we get Diplo as well. England get morale for navies and embargo efficiency. Those are pretty poor ideas, to be honest. Scotland get they get a good land force modifier, and they get leader shock, which is also great, especially early in the game. Yeah, that's a good starting idea. And they get land maintenance modifier once they do a whole bunch of different ideas, leading to their armies costing less. Whereas once we do all of our ideas, or many of our ideas, we get trade steering. That's not very good. What's England's 1? Leaders without upkeep. That's not very good. And their French extra discipline. That's great. So the ideas, once all of these are achieved, then you get that bonus idea. But the ideas, as you go through them, give you little perks on the way through. And these perks aren't necessarily little, they're just much more frequent. So extra prestige, cheaper mercenaries, extra discipline, trade efficiency, tolerance of heretics, and manpower. So we get some cool stuff. French get more diplo relations, more morale, tax. Oh, and that's interesting. That helps them with settlers, with colonization rather. Yeah, so they get the French get some very nice ideas too. Each nation will be different, as I said before, and you know, every time you start a new game as a new nation, you'll find different things about them. Country size is 9. We have 9 provinces. let's count them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 3 down there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh yeah, and 9. That makes sense. We have 138 development all told, so let's look at the development map again. We can see all of these numbers will add up to whatever it was, 138. 23 of those is in our capital, which is to be expected. The biggest and most important area of our nation is our capital. And fort level just shows that we've got, at the moment, we've got a fort there, a fort there, a fort there, so that's 4 forts. Each of those are level 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we have an extra one for our capital city. Last things to look at before we finish this one up and go into the game proper is we can see that we have a truce with Brittany, which will last for another 5 years? 6 years? I can't remember the exact start date. 6 years, let's say. We're allied with Brittany, and we can walk through each of these nations because they are our subject nations, either our what do you call them? Either our vassal or junior partners. So that's we've chosen the nation that we're going to be. We've chosen our start date. We've had a quick look through all the various start dates. We had a chat about DLC. We've talked about map modes and all of the things going on here. So I'll round this video up right now. Thank you for watching. I will be back shortly to continue this instructional video.